Alright, welcome back. So now we're going to talk about the general aggressive mindset that you should have when you're playing the aggro strategy. So for the most part, you want to be able to cast your commander multiple times during the game because that is your win condition. You have to have your commander out, you have to swing in, deal 21 damage or 10 infect for the case of Skittles. And so ramp is more, I'd say it's even more important to Voltron decks than any other type of big mana deck, because usually those types, they just cast an instant, a sorcery to sort of like end the game to have one big finisher. But for Voltron, you'll come into a lot of situations whereby your commander will be removed on occasion more than 2 or 3 times. And that's why for myself, I generally prefer to play commanders under the 6 CMC slot. So, there's also like a bit of math involved. Each incremental land that you draw from the deck, and each time you go up the curve by 1, it gets exponentially more difficult to be consistent at that point. So for me, I don't play commanders, Voltron commanders, I don't play them above the 5 CMC slot. So that's just my personal preference. Because imagine if you were to cast something at 6 CMC or 7 or 8 or 9 and it gets counterspelled, then you're set way back. And to reach like 6 CMC or even 5 CMC to that point, you need a lot of early ramp. And like having 2 mana ramp isn't enough to get to 5 and 6 that easily. You probably also need like 3 CMC ramps, like the Croshan, what's that called? The Cultivate and Kodama's Reach, Harrow, things like that. So these type of ramp would sort of semi-guarantee you to bring up to 5 CMC, but not always to 6, right? So mathematically, it is better to play 5 CMC and below for general Voltron decks, at least by my own opinion. The exception I would put, however, would be the combo oriented commanders, or rather, we'll talk about it later. We'll talk about the control aggro type. Well, not control aggro, sorry, the control type commanders. So these arguably could also be control combo. You could see it that way, whereby you can finish each opponent 1 by 1, but you only require 1 swing. So these usually fall above 6 CMC or 6 CMC and above. So one good example would be like Godo. So Godo gets Helm of the Host, comes in, wins the game. So has a combo element to it. Another one would be Bruna, which is Azorius. So she would just control the board for the entire part of the game, and then you fetch an intuition or something like that to get your key auras. You choose 3 auras, so 1 into your hand and the other 2 into your graveyard, I believe your opponent chooses, or something like that, but doesn't matter. When she swings, all get attached to it. And you can also make a case for the new Chromium, I believe, the one that turns into a 1/1 human hexproof. That one can't be countered. It has hexproof when you discard a card, I think, or something like that. And it's an Esper. But those are, I feel, are less. They feel less Voltron to me because they're at a much higher among the higher up the curve. It takes longer to come out, and once again, you'll be playing more controlled than anything else, and you would generally try to finish your opponent once you exhaust their resources. Whereas I feel it's better if you were to be the aggressor in the group, right? So then if you're constantly a threat and you put it earlier on, then they have to respond to you. You don't want to be in a position whereby you're responding to your opponent's every move. You want to be on the get-go. So things like, as I mentioned earlier on, commanders that are like lower down the CMC curve, 5 and below generally is the rule, would definitely be the best. So in the next one, we're going to talk about some unique commanders. Let's talk about the ones that have the more control-y feel, but not exactly like a full control.